Hi, my name is Jenny C., and this is my technology application podcast on electronic monitoring and criminal offenders. Electronic monitoring programs have been widely introduced to many nations worldwide in an effort to reduce the overcrowded prison populations that many countries face. It was meant to meet a sanction demand that was more lenient than prison but harsher than regular probation. Electronic monitoring devices, which are also known as electronic tagging, was originally designed more than 50 years ago for the purpose of offering criminals positive reinforcement to appear at given places at a given time, for example, a probation meeting. Offenders previously wore radio devices that transmitted their location data, which allowed law enforcement to verify that an offender was at a given place for a certain amount of time. Today, it's evolved into a means for monitoring criminals sentenced by the court, as well as prisoners being released from prison. The devices attached are based on GPS technology as well as radio frequency technology, depending on the purpose for the individual being monitored. GPS technology allows law enforcement to track down the wearer's specific location, while radio frequency technology is used as a curfew method to confine offenders to their homes, usually due to bail or a condition of early release. Electronic monitoring originated in the mid-1960s by a Harvard psychologist named Robert K. Schwitzgull. The actual electronic monitoring of offenders, however, did not start until the late 1980s. The initial electronic monitoring device was essentially a battery pack and a transmitter that could send a signal to a separate receiver within the distance of a quarter mile. There are two different types of electronic monitoring. One is the signaling electronic monitoring, and the second is a programmed contact electronic monitoring. The difference between the two is that one is deemed as active monitoring and the latter is deemed as passive monitoring. Continuously signaling systems function through the use of a transmitter, a receiver, and a central computer. The transmitter, which is often in the form of an ankle bracelet, is strapped to an offender and a signal is broadcasted regularly through a telephone line. The central computer is then responsible for assessing any interruptions with the curfew of an offender, and if such an interruption is detected, it alerts officers to the possibility of an absence that is unauthorized. The passive form of electronic monitoring, which we call programmed contact system, involves the computer that is programmed to call the offenders at random times, and the results of the call are reported. The offenders then verify their location through voice recognition, verifier boxes, and a variety of other methods to verify that they're at a specific location at a specific time. The greatest differences between electronic monitoring programs in the mid-1960s and present day is that present-day electronic monitoring programs track the movements of offenders, while previously it simply confirmed that an offender was at a given location at a specific time. Today, it's evolved into what is known as Global Positioning System technology, also known as GPS. Radio frequency and GPS-based tracking. There have been significant improvements in the form of tracking used in the electronic monitoring of criminals. These improvements have made the process to monitor offenders more efficient and affordable. The benefits of changing from a radio frequency electronic monitoring system to a GPS-based tracking system includes creating the most advanced electronic monitoring system available. GPS tracking is a superior form of electronic monitoring because it can track a wider range than traditional radio frequency monitoring can do, which can only restrict people to a specific location. In terms of criminal sanctions, there are a number of ways that law enforcement can use electronic and GPS monitoring to their advantage. Records of electronic and GPS monitoring can be used in pretrial proceedings as a replacement of post-sentencing of prison terms, as well as the use of correctional programs like probation or parole. Now, there is an impact to electronic monitoring as well. The first impact is on welfare dependence. It was discovered that electronic monitoring appears to be less harmful than imprisonment for offenders. This is especially true in young offenders, while for older offenders, it left them worse off than standard imprisonment. There have been studies done regarding the consequences imprisonment may have on offenders. Offenders are usually unable to contribute to society, or they contribute less to society when they're employed because they are unable to find employment and make a living to support themselves as well as their family during the time period that they are imprisoned. The second factor of impact involves the co-inhabitants that dwell with these offenders. The lives of those who live with offenders being electronic monitoring are continuously impacted by the different experience on a daily basis. Co-residents reported that they feel as if they're being punished because of the drastic changes that their lives go through, both socially and on a normal daily basis. Co-residents have a crucial role in the success of electronic monitoring through supporting the offenders that they live with. Unfortunately, because of this, co-residents feel as if they are criminals themselves and are also partially responsible for the administration of the punishment imposed. This chart shows the prison populations per 100,000 of the national population. A bunch of countries are explored, and the source is taken from the International Center for Prison Studies. This is followed by a discussion on recidivism. What is recidivism? Recidivism pertains to an individual's relapse into criminal behavior. This relapse is usually after they've received sanctions for a crime and or were involved in intervention for a previous crime. From the studies that have been performed, some found negative results in recidivism, evidenced by recurring incarcerations and arrests during the given time period that offenders were participating in the electronic monitoring programs. There was a claim that long incarcerations also raise recidivism, while long-term electronic monitoring reduces it. This is due to the reason that the criminal offender has formed bonds with society and his family and worked to the point that recidivism is reduced because he or she would not want to lose their achievements that they've already established. This can be explained through two theories. The first theory is the social control theory, and the second theory is called the self-control theory. The social control theory involves criminal behavior taking place when an offender's affiliation with society is weak and are lacking a connection with normal, everyday people in society. Based on this, electronic monitoring counters it by forcing offenders into a normative lifestyle in order to assist them with building social connections with family and friends, as well as life skills essential for everyday work. The self-control theory, on the other hand, states that the inability for a person to control their impulses is the reason that violent or antisocial behavior is exhibited or increased. This theory is the exact opposite of the social control theory. Regarding electronic monitoring perceptions and racial groups, electronic monitoring on its face, it appears to be a fairly equal process for offenders. If an offender is eligible for electronic monitoring, they should be able to participate regardless of race or gender. However, there was a survey that evidenced research performed by Payne and Okafo, which involved different racial groups exhibiting different attitudes towards electronic monitoring. Electronic monitoring was oftentimes viewed as unequal for particular racial groups as opposed to others, mainly involving non-white college students. The surveys discovered that attitudinal differences between minorities and non-minorities is what causes the difference in perception concerning the inequality of electronic monitoring applications. Now, electronic monitoring and the future. Electronic monitoring has had numerous advancements over the years, starting from radio-based to now advanced GPS-based systems where there is high accuracy. However, there's still room for improvement. For one thing, the current system of electronic monitoring does in fact need to be reformed. A system where the probation officers and police officers are more heavily involved with the tracking of offenders is needed. This could significantly help to stabilize the prison population, as well as save taxpayer money. And although electronic monitoring has developed to more advanced forms of the ankle bracelets, for example, for the most part allowing more durability and longevity, as well as battery life, the current system offers a poor value to the taxpayer, in a sense. In places like the United Kingdom, there are a limited number of private suppliers that have a monopoly over the manufacture of ankle bracelets. Because of this monopoly, innovation has been at a standstill technology-wise. In places like the United States, ankle bracelets are advanced, durable, and smaller, However, places like the UK far lags behind due to the nature of business contracts in the daily market. This is the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and are more aware of electronic monitoring and its effect on criminal offenders. Thank you.